Hello everyone, we're back. We're almost finished with 7 more of these precision low profile Sine plates. Today we're going to do a video showing a fixture that I made for jig grinding on the surface grinder with our air tool. The hole hitting as perfect as I can, 4-inch between center to center on the rolls with a unique setup. But anyways, they're almost done. We got to grind the holes and fit them, get them sized a little bit, but we're almost there. There's about 15 thousandths stock in these holes. I got a small pin that just kind of so you can see the action there. We call these low profile Sine bars for a reason. Here's a typical one, and this one is actually that's the one I made. Oh boy, I got dated 12/1/82, so it goes back a long ways, probably before many of you were even born. But you can see that even I got, I believe it was a 5/8 rolls on here. This is a 4-inch center to center as well, and I like that when I'm using a 6-inch vise because it just works better in there. And going with this style with the plate on the bottom is even better. But you can look, even as thin as this is, I still have trouble using that in the vise a lot of times because it's just too tall with the jaws. And you can see that this sets a lot lower. We still got the 4-inch between centers, so this is what we call them low profile, and it's a Sine plate. It's a high precision. I'm shooting within a couple tenths, trying to get a tenth or less on the distance between the rolls, everything nice and flat, parallel and square. We probably have one of our first products that we were making, I think, since our boring bars right after that, and I think we made about 6 of them altogether. It's one of the first items we brought to the Bar Z Bash, the first one we went to. And we gave Stan one and a raffle prize that we had, so we had a couple of those there. But anyhow, there's a number of people that wanted to buy them, and it's been a long time. We finally got to them, and we're going to finish them up. But we made a fixture. It'll work on both parts. We'll be able to grind this hole here and these 2 holes here, and we'll be doing that on the surface grinder. One of the things and advantages about this low profile, the design, is the way that the pins are fit in there. If you take this style and you got a roll, and I got a 1032 screw that's going in at an angle and tap toe in there, and that screw pulls it up tight against this surface and that surface, and the same with the 2 surfaces here. The problem with that is very little pressure is required. If you put them too tight, and again, it's very little pressure, you will distort this whole section of it right here. When I've got mine adjusted in, I actually run it under an indicator after I got them set just to make sure that I'm not bowing the parts based on the screw pressure. With these, because your pin is going inside a complete hole, you won't have that bowing problem. And so there's where you're going to gain some extra precision in this process. And let's go over to the surface grinder now, and we'll show you the fixture that we got set up that we'll be using today for grinding these. Okay, here is the setup that we'll be using today. We're using an NSK Planet 600. It's an air-driven, high precision spindle, and I've used a couple different ones, but these Planet ones from NSK, I just love them. They got a low air volume compared to some of the others that it consumes. With the muffler on there, they're nice and quiet. This one, I can't remember what it was, 65,000 RPMs, I think. Maybe it says right on there. Yeah, 65,000 RPMs is what that's rated to. And but it does a nice job. They got a nice collet system in there, real precision work. We're using the Suburban Mastergrind fixture, where I modified a setup with the base plate down here and some risers so that I can actually get bigger diameter work in, a bigger swing than if I was working just off of this. In fact, if I was working just off this right out of the box, this would be sitting at the table level right here, and you can see everything would be hitting the table. So I modified it. I added a couple tap toes up here so that I can put a motor, so it's a motorized fixture. I made this has a 5C collet face on it, and I got a face plate all built onto a 5C collet that comes in there, and then I can bolt different face plates, different fixtures on this V-block units. You've seen them in our previous videos, but a unit like this is worth its weight in gold. And if you have a surface grinder, you have a spin fixture, and you add one of these NSK Planet air grinders or something that's similar, that's good in precision, you can do some really high quality, very precision ID work on your grinder, as well as jig grind work. And so we're actually going to be doing jig grind work. So we got our Suburban tool over here, we got our NSK Planet 500, and what we'll be grinding with is a Continental Diamond Tool. They make CBN Diamond tools. These are resin bound. This is a 220 grit. I believe it's 100 or 150 concentration. I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, I think it's 150. This one here is 150 grit, 150 concentration. You'll probably see it in the video. I actually ground back a little bit on the shank with an angle just so I can get a little bit further in some of these holes. I bought the 220 because I wanted to see what the finish would be in comparison to the 150. But I haven't tried the 220 yet. It's coming out so nice with that 150 that it'll be down the road before I actually give that one a try. And with this 150, I can take a bigger bite. I'm actually taking a thousandths off per side. These CBN resin bound from Continental, they're some of the best I've ever used. They do a great job. It's high quality. They're a little bit pricey compared to other sources, but it's definitely well worth it, in my opinion, when you get something that's high quality like this. And I've used this company for probably well over 30 years, and I've never been disappointed with them yet. I don't get anything from them. They're not a sponsor. I'm not getting any freebies or anything. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. They make some of the best wheels on the market. So if you contact them, we'll put in the description area, we'll put a link to their site. You contact them, let them know that I sent you down there. So anyhow, the fixture that we got is going to start out with, this is pretty much the heart of it. And it doesn't look like much, it's just a rectangular piece. It's got a very precision hole, it's ground at 380. There's a 380 hole in here, so I can put a 380 pin on there and snug these up and get it close and throw an indicator on there and be probably less than a tenth. Also, I have from the center line of this hole to this edge, it's 3 7/8, and that's going to be very important because that's what's going to establish my 4-inch center to center with a 250 pin. And you'll see that, and I'll explain that as we get to it. Instead of trying to explain it now, you won't be able to probably to follow what's happening here. But the second piece of the fixture is just a nice flat precision ground piece, and it's going to go. This is something it can shift because I got to grind from 2 positions. So I've got this made so when I first set it up, let's see, let me make sure I got this right there. And you can see I was rubbing this up and down along this rail because you want to get any little dust, any little contamination that might be between the parts out, because this is what's going to reference the accuracy from this surface. Basically, you get this in there, and I don't really reef, I just snug them down. You don't have to reef. When you start putting tremendous amounts of pressure, you just start distorting everything, and you're going to lose your accuracy. No matter what you do, you're going to have a hard time getting parts in. So the first hole that we'll grind is this hole. So anyways, what we do, I can get this in here, again moving it up and down, making sure I don't feel any grit or any particles in there. I can take these two 1032 screws, get one started over here, get another one started back here. I'm going to have them just barely finger tight so that I can move it around easy yet. Throw my indicator up here. And everything should be fairly close. So it's way high over here. Just, as I say, I keep it nice and loose so that I can just put very little pressure on it, move it around. There we go. And I'm not going to get this just perfect because of the fact that it's just a drilled hole and they're rough ground into position. So what I'll do now, it's within a couple thou, there's 15 thousandths grind. So I'm well within a complete grind stock. So right now what I'm doing is I'm snugging them down. Now, again, not reefing them hard, just snugging them down good. And I'm pushing against the back. And you can't see the indicator from over at that angle, but we're within 2 thousandths, probably 1.5 thou total indicator reading. So now I got to reposition this, the y-axis, which I always call Z, but it's actually, or let's see, this would be, this would be the Z, and that would be the Y. Oh, before I get that going, one other thing I have to do is, because I have a lot of weight hanging on this side, I'm just going to add some counterweight to this other side. Something that's close. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just to offset it a little bit. There, and that will help counterbalance it a little bit. Actually, I can move that up one more. Now you start to see the value of a lot of these tapped toes in this faceplate. It makes things like this easy. Turn the air spindle on. Get it started there. And it may touch just a little bit because that wheel is very close to the same diameter as that hole right now. And I've already did a couple of these to check them out, get my setup. So I got a stop set up on there. These Continental Diamond wheels work real good. I can grind, I got 7 of these to grind out, and I bet I'm going to change less than 1,000 from the first part to the last part, taking 1,000 per side, 2,000 total per pass. Here's the 250 pin that we need to go in there. We're pretty close. Almost there. Right now what I'll do is I'll, say, just barely move, just not even where I see the digital go, and take some blank passes, because that's how close we are. My digital is showing 50 millionths from the last one we've done. To give you an idea, that's after taking 15,000 stock out. It gives you an idea how awesome those wheels are. And it's just about there. I want to take off, if I can, about another 50 millionths. Yeah, so my digital is now showing that we're 1/10 difference from the last one. This is why I love that CBN in a setup like this. I'm showing 1/10 difference, and I mean, that's a nice fit right there. When the digital's reading 50 millionths less than that, that pin would not go in. And digital only changed 50 millionths. I'm going to reset it to 0 there, but it goes in there. It's perfect. The kind of fit that I was shooting for. So what we got to do now, when you're doing a bunch of these, I can leave this set up over here and I can grind all of them, and I can get that one hole done. But because we're doing a video and I'm wanting to show you how this fixture works, I'm going to slide it over, change everything up, and show you how nice this thing works. So we'll start by removing the counterweight. Remove the part. Remove this base. paper towel, get any of the oils and the dust off of here. And you can see it does leave residue on there, so you want to get that off, because if you just make your adjustments and your clamping over that, it is going to make things where they won't work out as good as they should. I always like to follow with clean hands after that. So now what we got to do is we got to shift this plate down, because we got to bring the hole we just ground over here. We got to slide this down this plate, because we got to hold this so that we can grind this other hole. And like I say, if we're not doing the video, and then I would be grinding however many. If I'd had 10, I'd set them up and grind all 10, grind that one hole. And then I'd change the setup, and then I'd grind the second hole on all 10 of them. So what we're going to do now, earlier I was telling you how we had this hole that's it's actually on the center line of this. It's a 380 hole that we indicate first to get this thing indicated in. There's a dimension that is 3 7/8 of an inch between the center line of that and this surface, and this pin is a 250 thousandths diameter pin, which means from one edge to the other is an 1/8 inch. So right now, from the center line of this hole to the center line of this pin, with this fixture set up this way, that will be 4 inches. And it should be right on the nose. And what I did is I made me a block that I can screw in 5/40s. I got a 1032 that drives this pin. And I'm going to set this block on here, screw it in. I'm going to loosen these up. And then I'm just going to pinch it up and over with my hand. And this screw, I'll just snug it down. And that's pushing the pin against that surface. Then I can come over here. And I can snug this down. And if everything's working out just right, this should establish now, when I grind this hole, it should establish that 4 inches. And I was within 1/10,000th of an inch on the last one I've done, and so all they had to do is indicate that hole and move that hole the right direction, 1/10, and so hopefully this one will come out right on right on 4 inches, even closer. And there we go. And that was coming right back to 0. And it's probably about less than a tenth different from the other hole. Okay, I just came out to 0. Some blank passes. This is a slip fit and no shake. This right here's got a little drag to it, but that's how close this unit is. So we'll take this apart and we'll bring it to the granite table and we'll check the accuracy of this setup. So here's the results. It looks pretty good. Best I can tell right there is we're about plus 50 millionths of an inch. And here we're just about, we're less than a tenth off on there, easy within a tenth, and in that direction that's not going to really affect it that much at all. So now we'll turn and put the pin in the other side because we want to make sure the center line of both of these pins is the same. And so here we got right at 1/10, and here at about 50 million. So we're on the center line. As far as this way, we're within a tenth on both of them, and then the center line height from the bottom, or this face up on both, is within a tenth. And so that is good. I'm happy with that. And so now what we want to do, we want to check and see how straight it is with the sides. So here's one of the features that you have with our cubes is you can make attachments. I made a rail that I ground flat, and this cube is very square, so I can take a part like so and pop her in there, and I'll just tighten enough that it's not going to move, because excessive tightening will actually change, and we'll see how close it's come out that way. See if I can get this position for the camera here. So right here I'm reading from my angle just right on, real close to 0. And here we're 2/10, and again that's with the just moving that by. See if it. Just see if that makes a difference. Trying it again. +2. And we're just a hair over 0. So it's under 2/10 that way, coming from the side. And we'll check this other side. I'm sure it's running parallel with it. 0 from my angle. Yeah, we got about minus 1/10.5. So it's running the same as the other side there, it looks like, and it looks like opposite direction, which means it looks like they're going perpendicular with each other. So now what we want to do is we want to measure the center heights. And so for this, I'm probably going to have to let this get set and kind of cool down a little bit, because just my handling of it with my body temperature will actually change that a tenth or two. So I just got that finger tight. I used a 1/4 inch 250 thousandths gauge block under the pin, and the pin is a 1/4 inch. So the top of that pin, I'm going to get it set. I used a 1/4 inch gauge block to get me real close. It should be running real close to this 1/2 inch gauge block now. So I'm setting 0 there. And it's going to be hard to get the camera angle here, but I'm going over the top of the pin now. In the top of that pin, I can actually, oops, just moved everything. Bump the indicator, so we'll have to reset here. We'll do it a little bit different way here. Snug her down a little bit so it doesn't move. And I'm reading about not quite 50 millionths over 0. Let's reset this. Here I'm on 0. There we go, we're 0, and we're 0. So now if I take the pin out very carefully stick it in the top. If I take a 4-inch gauge block, stick the 1/2 inch block on top, ring it together. If I got a 4-inch center to center, it should read the same as what I get this gauge block. Let's see, get it over here where I can see the needle a little bit better. So I'm reading right on 0 from my angle. And here we're reading about a tenth, maybe a little over a tenth. But again, I've been handling the part. If I let that set, for about 10 minutes, I bet it will come down. So even right there, just that little bit, we're already just 1/10 difference there. And if I leave it set, cool down, I think it's going to be even closer. But right now, as it is, it's showing within 1/10. And I'm shooting for plus or minus 2/10. And here we got plus 1, while it might be a little bit warm. It actually worked out pretty nice. The other 2 we did are coming out within those tolerances. One came out just about 1/10 low. And then the other was about 1/10 low. I made an adjustment, and this one here is coming out, I'm going to guess, about 50 millionths high by the time it cools down. I'll check it off camera later and find out. But anyhow, that's how that fixture will work. And it is just amazing how precision that you can get a project like this just right off the surface grinder with those types of tools. So we thought we'd show that to you. If you're interested in these high precision, low profile Sine plates, we sell those for $450 a piece. They're made out of DC-53. They're heat treated to 5860 Rockwell, so you got good wear and you got a little bit of toughness in there. We've made, I think, 7 videos in the past concerning the whole build of this unit. And we got 7 of these that we're making right now that are already spoken for. We're going to have, I think there's 13 others that will be after that. Many of them are spoken for. If you're interested, shoot us an email. We'll put that on you see that on the screen. Shoot us an email at solidrock@nlbchapel.org, and we'll get you set up. I've had one of our customers, he's a subscriber. He's bought quite a few of our products. He's one of the few, I think there's only about a half dozen of these out there right now. He's one of the few that has one of the 4-inch, and he just asked me if I ever had any plans on making a smaller one yet for use in a 4-inch vise. And so I told him I will give it some thoughts. I never really considered it, but if there's a demand, and there's a lot of people with 4-inch vices, and what I can do is I can drop the pin size down to 3/16, and then I can try to shrink some sizes a little bit and see if I can get that even a little bit smaller profile, so on the height of it, so it'll work actually real nice in a 4-inch vise. So, but it would be a 3-inch between centers rather than 4. And so if there's any interest in that, I will consider that. But with this now, I'm not sure if we'll do a video on that or not. We have to grind this hole out yet. Basically, just setting it up on that fixture. It's got the same center height from the bottom up. So it's basically setting that on there, clamping that on, and grinding that hole out to a 250 diameter. That one will go real fast and easy. And then what I have to do is I have to grind. This plate will have 2 or 3 thousandths left on. I'll have to, after I get the pin put into this hole, I'll have to grind this surface so that if I lay a pin on here, the top of that pin measures the same as the top there. So we might do a little video on that, on maybe a part 2, and maybe even show you the finished product at that time. So me and Adam will talk it over and see what we're going to do. But we're almost done with these. So anyway, that will be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.